Hey guys, this is Adam Gusky of the Mad Awareness Podcast, episode 6. Today I sit down with Donald McNeil and talk about his spinal cord injury that roughly 10,000 people have each year and only 77 people fully recover from. And he obviously fully recovered and then was actually able to wrestle after that and have quite a bit of success. So it's a super cool story. And also, I ask that if you guys enjoy this stuff and have been listening for a while, please go subscribe to it on whatever platform you're listening to it on and give it a 5-star review if you're on Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. Let's get it rolling. All right, man. How are we doing today?
Good. How's it going?
Pretty good. So how's the quarantine life been treating you?
It's been all right. I just finished up grad school, so a couple weeks ago, actually, graduation. Well, I guess not quite graduation, but I got my
Yeah,
conferred degree, I guess, on the 10th. So just finished up with
nice.
that. So glad that that's over with, and just trying to figure out what's next.
So I know you're training at the New England RTC.
Yeah.
Are you going to continue doing that now that you're done with school?
Yeah, so that's kind of a good question. I think it's going to be remain to be seen just based on what's going on right now. I mean, I'd love to try to at least compete for one more year now that the Olympics are delayed. At least have a couple more opportunities to try to make trials and all that kind of stuff. But we'll see how long this pans out and kind of see what happens next. But
Yeah.
like I said, I'd love to keep competing if that's an option. Um, but yeah, it's kind of just figuring that out right now. What's next? So
So have you been able to like get workouts in and train at all since like everything pretty much closed up?
yeah, so that's been a little hard. I've kind of just been on my own. I haven't been on a wrestling mat in a couple months, but I've been doing a lot of running and just some body weight stuff. But
Oh
I always
yeah.
yeah, I feel like I need something athletic to like work towards. So never a runner before quarantine, but now I feel like I am a little bit of one. So
Yeah, I see you putting those miles in on Strava.
yeah, I know. There you go. So yeah, I'm trying to run a half marathon at least to help try to benefit, bring awareness to Beat the Streets Providence. So just something I'm trying to do right now, at least to kind of help out and keep myself in a little bit of shape. So.
Awesome. So you got a pretty crazy story.
Mhm.
But I guess we'll get into that soon. But let's just start with how you got into wrestling and like at what age?
Yeah. So I started wrestling when I was 8 years old. Um, so it's kind of, I guess, a little. So my dad, he wrestled like back in the day, and he was actually in the finals of the Olympic trials. He was a heavyweight. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so he has a pretty big wrestling background. And my mom is actually a teacher in Providence, Rhode Island, and one of the people that she was teaching with was starting a youth wrestling program in Providence. And he, once he got that started, and just given my dad's background, he thought it would be something good for me to get into. Um, so I was kind of like a chubby little kid, but not super athletic. But yeah, I mean that's how it started. And even though I took my beatings for a while, I just really loved the sport and kind of everything it stood for right away. Um, so yeah,
when did you like first start to see success?
yeah. So I mean, it took me a few years, I think, to before I really started winning tournaments. I mean, I think I placed at a couple, but that was probably because I was kind of bigger for my weight, so I was probably like three or four guys in my weight class, so I'd get like a bronze medal. But
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I actually started seeing decent success. I think around like 3 or 4 years in. But yeah, it took me a while, and I think now that I'm older, I have a lot of respect for youth coaches that are out here investing in kids, and especially for me, I remember pretty vividly Lonnie Morris, who's the coach at Johnson and Wales. I used to go work out there a lot when I was little, and he always worked with me, even though it's probably one of the more difficult kids to work with, just because it was so hard for me to pick up. what they were teaching me, even if it was something pretty simple. So
Yeah.
he invested a lot in me. A lot of the youth coaches growing up invested a lot in me to get where I am now. And obviously my high school and college coaches too. But there's a ton of respect for youth coaches, that are putting the time in to really help kids learn the sport. So,
Nice. Yeah, that's funny you mentioned like the whole not being a lot of bigger guys when you're younger thing, because I have a friend that he took second at Greco State in like sixth grade because he went 0-1.
no,
So there were only two
exactly.
people in the bracket anyways, but yeah,
Right. Yeah,
that's
no,
awesome.
yeah, definitely. Hey, that's the way to do it. A medal's a medal, right?
But
So,
yeah, he got a huge trophy, man. I mean, you know.
yeah, it's awesome.
But
Yeah,
and
it's a cool
then
sport. But,
so then going into high school, I guess how did you do your freshman year?
yeah, so my freshman year, I think I was like 26 and 19 or something. And so I qualified for the state tournament. I went 0 and 2. Um, and it was obviously very disappointing. But I was a 160 pounder, so there was a lot of bigger kids, kind of more physically imposing than me at that time. And then that's when after that, I started. I grew a little bit and got a lot stronger. And I always had that pretty decent. I mean, obviously I'm uh, impartial here, but I had pretty good work ethic, I think, and despite not having maybe as much success as I would have wanted, because I wrestled in Massachusetts, so I wouldn't say it's as hard as like New Jersey or PA, but I thought it was a great accomplishment. I think at the time maybe to qualify for states uh, and all that.
Hmm. And then going into your sophomore year, it sounds like you made a lot of improvements. I guess
Yeah,
like what would you give credit to for like making those jumps that you had?
yeah. I mean, I think there was a lot of pieces to it. I think just kind of being persistent. And I really took a lot of pride, I think, in people. So there's people that would say, oh, like Donald, he works so hard and he's the hardest worker in the room. And I think a lot of wrestlers kind of get that. And I really like when people would say that, it meant a lot to me and it would kind of help me work even harder. And, I mean, I always had big goals, but I don't know if I ever really thought in my mind, like, oh, I'm going to win the state tournament. I think I just thought like, I'm going to keep working hard and see where it goes. I mean, when I lost the year before in the states, I think I lost to the guy that got fifth in like the divisional states, and I'm like, oh wow, that guy was great. Like, I hope I'm that good. And the next year I come back and made those huge gains, and I ended up beating the returning state champ in the finals and winning the state tournament. So I mean, I think that's kind of like a big message for me. It's just I wasn't somebody that was gifted. I think I always had to work really hard, and you can make big gains even in a year if you really put the work in and do everything kind of right.
How did you like I guess so you went from going 0-2 at the state tournament to winning it. How do you
Yeah,
not get caught up with like just the idea of like being in the semis and not like make that more of a deal than it is and stay focused, I guess.
yeah. I mean, I think it was. I mean, a lot of the off season. I mean, I did a ton of off season wrestling. We travel like all over the country, so I get beat up pretty good by some of these guys from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, places like that. Um, so I mean, I think that really kind of helped me. Obviously states was a big deal to me, but I think it kind of put it a little bit more in perspective. Um, that I was just as good because I had wrestled some of the best guys in the country, and I could hang with them a little bit, even if they beat me up. Is they might be exhausted after the match, or might have only lost by like a point or two, and I think that kind of helped with my confidence going into my sophomore year. And obviously making like the semis and the finals, it was just you try to treat it like any other match as much as you can. I know there's a lot of pressure, but I always feel like I felt like I'm somebody that likes the pressure and can do pretty well under it. I know some people don't always feel that way, and sometimes I think it gets the better of me. But I always kind of like the pressure being on, and I think that's also I like that as an upper weight too in high school and college, just in the dual meet setting, being able to close out the dual meet or lock it up, and
Hmm.
always kind of like that.
So then you win it that year. You're probably like feeling on top of the world, and then
Yeah.
that summer, like the accident happens. So if you want to just talk about what happened and then like the road to recovery from that point, um,
Yeah,
you can just take it away.
of course. Yeah. So, I could talk forever, but I mean, yeah, that year was definitely like that was the year everything was clicking on all cylinders. I won the state tournament. I was second in New England to Robert Hamlin, who was like a three-time All-American at Lehigh. So obviously that was a lot. I made huge gains compared to where I was the year before. So, things were finally clicking. Started doing some off season, was doing really well. Um, was at a tournament in Virginia where it was freestyle and greco, and I went I think 6-0 in freestyle, and I beat like a bunch of state champs. One from Virginia, North Carolina, like Florida, Maine, like just like all over. And the next day in the greco, I had a guy who was like a two-time undefeated state champ from North Carolina, and I knew he was tough. He was beating me pretty good in the freestyle, and I ended up getting a chin whip and pinning him. Um, so I knew he was going to be a tough opponent. I was wrestling him in the greco. I was losing pretty good. This is like the last match of the day. I was 5-0 I think on the day. Losing like 6-0 or something in the greco. And there was like 30 seconds left, and they used to have the old like parterre.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they brought it back now for greco, but he started from the parterre and he picked me up and smashed me right on my head and all his weight and my weight came down on my head. And, it was from there that, I couldn't move or feel anything from the neck down. And obviously, I didn't know what was going on. There's a trainer at the tournament who, I don't, she was younger, and I think she was like, oh, like, I think it's a stinger and all this. And then luckily for me, there was actually a doctor in the stands who came down, and he was, pricking me with a pin, and he's like, can you feel this? Can you feel this? And I was like, no. And, he seemed very concerned. And that was when the ambulance came, and they took me to the hospital. It was like it was emergency. I don't know what code it was. I don't really, but like it was pretty crazy. They took me in. They put me in the X-ray machine to see what had happened. Remember them kind of cutting off my wrestling shoes and my singlet and everything. And then they got me ready for surgery right away. And that was when I found out that I had, had a spinal cord injury. So there was a couple fractured vertebrae, pinched spinal cord, a bunch of dislocated vertebrae, and they had to do, surgery right away to stabilize my neck. And there's a bunch of hardware in there now and everything. But yeah, the surgery was like 7 or 8 hours. I think it took pretty long. So
Wow.
definitely, yeah. And my whole family was there, and they saw the injury and everything. So I can't imagine to them how hard it was as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then and obviously I didn't know anything about spinal cord injuries or neck injuries before all this, so I didn't really know what it meant or anything like that. And when I had finally come out of the surgery, that was when I remember one of the nurses saying like, "Oh, this is what like trying to like help me prepare for life as with like quadriplegia." And that's when I like kind of hit me how severe it was, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a scary moment. I still remember, like thankfully my parents and my great aunt and stuff were all, and my brother and everybody was there for me, because it was really scary not being able to feel or move anything. And I remember one moment they like left the room for a little bit, and I was asleep, I think, and I woke up and nobody was there, and it was I was 15 years old, so
That's
it was pretty,
crazy.
it was terrifying. Yeah. So
Do you remember
um,
all of this like as clearly as you're telling it, or is this from other people like reminding you what happened after?
no, I remember. I definitely remember it clearly, which is, I think, it's like many years later now, but it's still, yeah, it's still definitely something that I remember like yesterday. And uh, you know, so
Like,
yeah, I don't know.
did you get like knocked out on impact?
No, so yeah, I was awake the whole time. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I didn't know what was going on because I didn't know anything about spinal cord injuries or And like I said, the trainer was like, "Oh, it's a stinger," and so like it was pretty crazy.
Yeah. And then, I guess what was like the recovery process from then on,
Yeah,
the next
um,
6 months or something? Like,
yeah. So I mean, like I'm obviously extremely fortunate that everything has worked out so well. I was inpatient for about a month, and I'd say I was completely paralyzed from the neck down for like about a week when I got there, and then I mean, it seems like for me, obviously, a month doesn't is a pretty quick period of time, but it was like I felt like every day I'd get a little bit like motion back, but I didn't have the strength, obviously, but I get a little bit. I can like move my finger, or I can wiggle my toe a little bit, um, and all that was big strides at the time for me, and just things like that. So, um, like I said, I was inpatient for about a month, and had to use the power wheelchair, the manual wheelchair, crutches, and then when I walked out, I was able to walk out of there without using anything, and that was pretty unheard of, I think. You don't really typically see that with spinal cord injuries. And I remember too that I think it was like the day before I left, I met with my doctor, and he said, there's 10,000 injuries like yours a year. He's like, out of those 10,000, he's like 77 people recover fully, and that was like when he said
wow.
that, so I mean, that was like, like it was kind of amazing to like hear that and like, wow, like it just really makes me way more, like very appreciative, for all the care that I got, for everybody that was there for me. The wrestling community raised like 60, $70,000 for my
Well,
recovery.
that's
Because
cool.
I had to be med flighted and stuff, so it's pretty crazy. They raise a lot of money, and that's just kind of a testament to the wrestling community in general. How great of a community, like people I don't even know are donating good amounts of money, and I'm always very grateful for that. But as far as the recovery, I was able to walk out of there out a month, but I didn't have any strength really. um, I was fortunate, like I said, I didn't have to use crutches or anything, but um, I had to do a lot of outpatient rehab for probably 5 or 6 months afterwards. And the main thing that I did that I'm very thankful for, my high school coach, he used to take me to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week, and I'd be lifting weights with him, and it was pretty amazing. My brother would come with me, but we'd give him some money at first to do it, and then after a while, he's like, I don't even want any money. So I mean, to just take me to the gym and get me stronger, and I don't think he was, he wasn't doing it because he was like, we got to get you ready for state. Like, I don't even think he thought I would wrestle again, but he was like, he just wanted me to be stronger, and obviously wrestling was important to me, and maybe that didn't see, I think people thought I was crazy when I'm like, I'm going to go back to wrestling and I'm going to wrestle again. And I don't think anybody believed that I would, especially, my mom was totally against it. As you probably imagine, I
Yeah.
know probably
Yeah.
most parents would
That's
be. My
fair.
dad's like, yeah, my dad's like a wrestling guy, so he loved it. But yeah, it was close to a year before I could wrestle again. And it was hard to find a doctor that would clear me to wrestle as well. That was like another challenge, but um, I finally did, and after a ton of just the month of inpatient, 6 or 7 months outpatient, and just weightlifting pretty much 4 or 5 days a week for like almost a year is like just to
Hmm.
get my strength back, because I just remember trying to lift like 2 or 3 pounds, and I couldn't even do it, like at first. So it was pretty drastic that I went from wrestling guys that were like 170 pounds, like full muscle, like to not being able to lift 2 pounds. It was kind of
Hmm.
that was hard for me, I think, at first to grasp when I was injured. I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was a long, long road, and a ton of people made it happen, and it's pretty amazing to
That
see.
is an absolutely incredible story.
Yeah.
But so like whenever I feel like anyone who wrestles, if they don't get on the mat for like a couple months, they just like get that itch and want to get back in there and stuff.
Yeah,
But so obviously, I'm sure you wanted to wrestle really bad, like after the injury. But were
right.
you like a little bit nervous about just like your body being able to handle it?
Yeah, like I think I was just so excited to get back to wrestling that I didn't really have many nerves. And I know that sounds crazy too, but I also was like, oh, I got hurt doing greco, I'm not gonna get hurt doing folk style, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that was part of it too. I'm just like, I'm never doing greco again. That's kind of, but I always felt kind of comfortable going back to folk style. And
And then talk about like that first practice and then those next couple practices after the injury and
yeah.
everything.
Yeah, so like like I said, it was pretty hard to like find a doctor to clear me. I actually found a doctor like I think 2 weeks before the sectional tournament that would clear me to wrestle. So I had not, when I got injured, it was actually, yeah, it was like around this time of year. Um, it was on Memorial Day weekend, so I hadn't wrestled obviously from Memorial Day weekend till like probably the middle of February. So it was like 8 or 9 months, I guess, and finally found a doctor that would clear me to wrestle. And I got on the mats, and obviously it was terrible shape. Like my timing and everything was way off, and it was hard, obviously, to get back into shape, as you can imagine. Kind of missing all that time coming back from something like that. So yeah, the first couple of practices were definitely rough. It wasn't easy, and but it was just like I pulled that same work ethic that I always had from wrestling into the rehab, into the coming back to wrestling. Just I know it sounds cliche, but just that whole like mindset that I'm going to be like the toughest guy in the room, and I'm going to work the hardest in the room, and that carried over a lot in my life. So when I came back, it was just like another hurdle that I had to like overcome, and I knew I could do it. So um, yeah, it was tough. It was first for sure though. It was first few practices.
Yeah, like I'm sure the practices were tough, and then I was just thinking, how sore were you like the next day after that first practice back?
Oh yeah, I was definitely feeling it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can imagine.
But uh,
And then how did that year finish up for you?
yeah, so I mean, like I said, so it even sounds more crazier when I tell it. But I was, you know, I came back. My high school team wasn't great at the time, but they thought they had a chance, I guess, at sectionals and maybe states to do something. So I talked to the coach a lot, and he's like, oh, do you want to go like the time it was before the weight class changed? But he's like, do you want to go 189 or 215? And I'm walking around at like 185, and I'm like, oh, I'll go 215. Like, so that was kind of another probably poor decision on my part, especially coming back from that injury. Um, yeah, so I mean, I came back, I wrestled 215, and uh, I ended up winning states that year at 215. So it was like I went from 160 less than a year ago. One state got injured, and then I won. I guess what was it, like 4 or 5 weight classes up. So pretty big difference. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to like sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but it's just I wasn't nearly as good of a wrestler as I was before I was injured. I wasn't super athletic. I was kind of chunky. Didn't have as much muscle, and it was just kind of like the whole mentality that I'm like this. I'm gonna win state again. Like I won states last year, and I'm gonna win this year, and that was kind of my mentality. And I don't know if people thought I could do it, but it's pretty. That was even. I remember crying like a baby after I won, my second state title after coming back from that. It was kind of a dramatic kind of match too. It was almost movie like a little bit like
Oh
this
yeah,
match. So
they could totally make a movie out of this. This is
yeah,
like I feel
yeah,
like a lot of wrestlers like work hard because they want to have like that comeback story. This is just like the perfect example. So it's
right.
super cool to hear about.
So
Um,
yeah. I mean, the match itself was. I won like 3-2 on a penalty point. So that might be the part
oh
that.
really?
Yeah, it's a little anticlimactic, I guess, but the guy was, kind of bullying me around, and he was like swearing at me after the match. And so it was kind of, and people were actually like cheering and like Donald. So it was like, it was pretty like he broke my headgear, like somebody threw a headgear from the stand. So it was like literally like that movie type of like, it was, it probably couldn't have been like scripted better. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
If you still have the film anywhere, you need to send me that after this is over, because that's
Yeah, I think
awesome.
there's like a part of the match. I think, yeah, I think it is. It's a terrible match. It's not exciting or or anything, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think there is a video somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then so talk about like how the recruiting process went.
Yeah. So so kind of, probably gonna start rambling, but um
That's okay.
yeah. So I was wrestling in Massachusetts at that time. After states I did a lot of off season wrestling, but obviously, like I felt like obviously I wasn't as good as where I was before the injury, and um, I lost a lot of matches in the off season again. It was like starting from square one again. I wasn't as dominating as I was. So I really felt like I needed, I almost missed the whole year. So I'm like, I almost need like another year to get back, just to get back to where I was. And, it was always my goal to wrestle at Division 1. And, that was always the goal from when I was a little kid. So when I came back, I was like, I need another year. And that's kind of when I found out about Wyoming Seminary. How I could repeat a year there and then, wrestle pretty much for 2 more years of high school before going to college. And um, I was very fortunate at the time. John Gordon was the coach, and that he said it'd be good for me to be there. And my dad and mom were in agreement that it was a good fit. And obviously, like, Sam, that was when they first started being pretty good nationally. And they wrestled Beast of the East, Iron Man, Escape the Rock. They've been out to like the Clash, like Cheesehead. I didn't get to go out to those. I wish I did, but
Cheesehead. Nice.
yeah,
That's like 10 minutes away from my hometown.
yeah, that's awesome.
So,
I always wish I got to do that one, but I never got the
yeah.
chance.
That's a
But
fun one to watch. But
yeah, yeah. So pretty much that whole year was kind of just me getting back into wrestling. And at the end of that year, I was, I placed at Ironman, I placed at national preps. I won Escape the Rock, like those things. And that was kind of like my year to get back. And after that year, I kind of felt like I was back to where I was before the injury, but it took almost that whole, like a year and a half to kind of get back to where I felt like I was before I was injured, because wrestling at such a high level. Um, but I mean, that year was definitely, it felt like it had to happen. And then my senior year, I wanted to kind of commit right away to colleges. And um, so I did I didn't do a ton of recruiting trips, but I did a few. And that year I ended up committing to UNC Greensboro, and then I won prep nationals and all that stuff. Um, so it was pretty cool. And then, I was at UNC Greensboro for a year, and it was my redshirt year, and they dropped the program. So that was a whole other thing. But yeah, I
what was
mean,
that like?
yeah, that was a whole other thing in itself. But that was, I felt really bad for some of the upperclassmen and people that, were very happy there. And, it's kind of crazy to me because I never thought about that happening. And the team had just won the conference, I think, Southern Conference, like a year or two before. So,
Jeez.
yeah, they told us, like I said, it was my redshirt year, but they sat us all down in the AD's office, and they told us all the week before NCAA's, and we had like 4 qualifiers. So I'm like, that's not right. Like,
Oh,
these
yeah.
guys should be getting ready for the tournament, and you just told them
Seriously.
programs dropping. So, yeah, it was pretty wild. And we had some good guys. One of them ended up going to Purdue after that and being an All-American. And one went to Central Michigan, was in the round of 12. And, and a couple of the guys made the world team for Greco and stuff. So it was we had a good
Well,
team. Yeah. So,
what year was that?
that was 2010, like 2010, 2011.
Okay.
Yeah, some of those guys still wrestle Greco, and they're really good. So yeah, I see them at some of these tournaments and stuff, and it's pretty cool to see them.
Nice. Nice. And then, so then, like, after Greensboro, you transferred to Ryder. And
Yeah.
then how was that transition process like?
Yeah, so that was it was kind of interesting, I guess. I think because before I went to Greensboro, I was like in between Ryder and Greensboro, and
Okay.
so I was like, oh, I think I'm going to go to Greensboro. So then after Greensboro dropped the program, I called them back and was like, hey, you guys still want me? And like I was very fortunate that they did, and they embraced me, and it didn't even feel like I was a transfer, but uh, yeah, it was kind
That's
of kind
awesome.
of an awkward conversation, I guess, to be like, hey,
Yeah.
you remember me? So, but yeah,
That's what Cam Sikora was on a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me about like he was thinking about NDSU or SCSU, chose SCSU, and then transferred back. So it worked
oh
out
wow,
pretty well. So
I know it worked. Yeah, it's crazy how it works.
yeah. So then you had some success at Ryder, and
Yeah.
then how many you qualified for NCAs twice? Is that right?
So once, yeah,
Okay. But
yeah,
then your senior year, why don't you just talk about that a little bit? What happened?
yeah. So I mean, again, I qualified my sophomore year for NCAA's. Again, it was here's another like hurdle. Just junior year, probably having the best year of my college season and blew out my shoulder.
Oh,
Uh,
sorry, junior year.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
so freshman year, again, it was kind of like my high school freshman year. It was like growing pains again. It was pretty close to placing in the conference, but I didn't. Sophomore year, I took third in our conference and ended up qualifying. Russell Quentin Wright like the first match, so it kind of stunk. He ended up winning that year, but
Yeah.
this is how it works sometimes. And then yeah, junior year, having a really good season, beat a few ranked guys, and was in the quarterfinals at Midlands and ended up losing. But then I came back and won in the round of 12. Was beating the guy like 8-2 or something that round. There was like a minute and a half left, and he reversed me and kind of jumped on top to just kind of secure the reversal, and my shoulder went right into the mat and just tore everything in my shoulder. So and then of course he after that too he got a medical forfeit, I think, in the conti semis, and went for like third and fourth. I was like, oh my god.
Jeez.
So it was brutal to see that, and
Yeah.
he was pretty high on the rankings after that, and I'm like, oh man, I was beating him good, and then that's how wrestling obviously is sometimes. And I tried to keep wrestling a couple times throughout the year with the shoulder brace, and it just didn't. My shoulder wouldn't hold up, and obviously labor and problems are an issue for wrestlers in general for the most part. So uh, yeah, so that was tough. I had to get surgery the day before conferences and kind of call that season a wash and everything.
Yeah. And
I
then
mean, yeah.
so that's your junior year.
Yeah,
And then how did your senior year go?
yeah. Senior year, I was still coming back from the shoulder injury. Had a couple of just little nagging type of injuries that were, kind of held me back a little bit. I lost a couple matches that I shouldn't have, but I was trying to wrestle for the team, and I didn't really have a backup. The kids, one of our teammates stepped in and did a great job, but he's a little outmatched. So it was, I tried to wrestle a few times when I probably shouldn't have, and things like that. So um, yeah, I don't know. It was kind of a rough year. Definitely not what I would have expected. Qualifying for the tournament my sophomore year, then having that injury. I took third in the conference, but I just missed qualifying for NCAA's my senior year, so it was pretty rough. Lost a tough match in the semis, the conferences.
Would you
Just
say
got
that like what was that?
what's that? Oh yeah, no, I lost. Yeah, I lost pretty bad. Like, and not. I mean, it was close, but in a pretty bad way. I think in the semis, and that still kind of haunts me a little bit today. But it's in the past now.
Would you say like having more success early on in your college career and then like finishing your senior year not on the note you wanted to be on like motivate you to keep doing it at the New England RTC?
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of guys will kind of tell you that, and I think that's part of the sport. I think sometimes we want to accomplish more, and we wish we could have accomplished more. And I think yeah, like I kind of had a bad taste in my mouth. I think after my senior year, it didn't go the way that I wanted it to, and um, I was moving back up to New England, and I reached out to Todd Beckerman, who's the coach at Brown, and he had told me, oh, do you want to keep training and competing? And at first, I was kind of like, oh, I just want to be involved with wrestling. I don't really want to, I think I'm done competing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I know those obviously those guys are beasts that compete on the senior level. So I was like, I don't know, because I kind of took 6 or 7 months off, I think, after my college career was over. And I kind of thought I was done competing, I think. And it was like, you know, this is just what it is. Like, I'll coach and ref and help. And,
Yeah,
but
it's
yeah.
a lot on your body too.
Yeah.
Just wrestling in general.
Oh, I know. It's brutal. But
But how has that been like training at New England RTC, and now that like Mike Ironman's there?
yeah. Oh, it's been awesome. Now I don't have any regrets about going back to competing. I think again, like it's always kind of been through these transitions. That first year I did terrible on the senior level, and my freestyle wasn't great and still needs a lot of work. But it wasn't really until my second year where I had a lot of, a good amount of success. Placed at the U.S. Open and uh, won the Maccabee Games in Israel, and then the next year I placed at a tournament in Cuba and stuff. So I mean, like, it was great. I finally started having some success, and obviously now, working with Mike, it's been great. And that was only for the, couple months, and then this, the whole pandemic started. But
Yeah,
um, yeah, he's amazing. Now he knows so much wrestling. It makes me feel like I don't know any. So it's like, but it's really cool to like talk to him and pick his brain and learn all this stuff. And it's still kind of frustrating now that I'm a little older and I'm like, oh man, there's so much wrestling I don't know. But it's awesome at the same time because I love learning new stuff. So
yeah. It would be cool if wrestling was like jujitsu or something where you could just like kind of do it for fun and learn the technique for fun, like once you're done competing for a
no,
national
no,
title or whatever. But
yeah, no, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's awesome, and I think that's a great thing about wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I mean, as a coach, there's still so much you can learn. You can never know everything with wrestling, which is pretty awesome.
yeah, definitely. And then I guess I got two more questions. So
Yeah.
one is, how have you been able to balance um, getting your second degree with like training at the New England RTC?
Yeah, so that's been so I've spread it out a little bit, like my master's, and that was kind of on purpose because I wanted to be able to focus on my training and not be consumed with schoolwork. I guess like the entire day, be able to get my
Yeah.
workouts in. Um, so yeah, I mean, my goal was kind of to train and work through the cycle, and I knew I was graduating this year in 2020, so I was like, oh, it kind of coincides perfectly. Doing it part time and being able to train and compete and all that stuff. So, but yeah, I've definitely had to balance a lot. And, even though I'm only taking classes part time, it's still a lot of work. So I don't know how some people are able to go to grad school full time and do things, but it's
Yeah.
pretty intensive.
Nice. Yeah, I only did like 12 credits most semesters, and that was just for a
Oh,
bachelor's degree. So
yeah,
I
that's amazing.
all
Yeah.
about chilling out
Yeah.
and focusing on wrestling a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah. And then the last question I got for you is, how has wrestling motivated you to do things beyond wrestling itself?
Yeah, I think I mean, I'll probably sound pretty cliched, but I think it's just, I mean, everything that wrestling has taught me kind of carried over in life. And, when school and stuff gets hard, I think it's easy to like kind of have that wrestling mentality, like, oh, I know I can do it. And I know it's not going to be easy. And, um, like there's times in grad school where it was pretty tough. And, that kind of that wrestling mentality helped me work through it. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I'm like trying to think of the words to say because it's just there's so much that wrestling has done for me, and I think it's always going to be a huge part of my life, and everything that I've learned from it, like the work ethic and putting everything into it, carries over, and I think that's something that's going to carry over in whatever job I end up doing after this, and after I'm done competing, and after I now that I have my master's and stuff. So I think it's, I'd say it's, the best thing you could do for your kid or whatever to get them involved in wrestling, just because it just teaches so many great life lessons about, doing things maybe when you don't want to, and just being dedicated and being all in. And it's like cliched, but it's taught me a lot.
Though.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you hopping on, man.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, thanks for talking. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I can kind of share a little bit of what wrestling has done for me with people. So.
Hey guys, that's it for the episode. I just want to say thanks for tuning in. If you could go subscribe to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever you listen to it on, I would really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, and please go give it a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you enjoy it. Thank you guys. Have a good one.